Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, 49ers Plus Minus Emergency episode with my co-host, Matt Barrows of a place that I used to know, The Athletic. Barrows, this is a kicking emergency show. I didn't know that was possible to do. I certainly didn't think it was going to be today. I am surprised, as anyone who's listened to this podcast, by the results. Had Greg Joseph cut, who I was picking to win the kicking competition, and Jake Moody basically handled the job, although it's not the way Shanahan describing it. It was a roster crunch. They needed healthy bodies to make it through this joint practice coming up. You got the preseason starting. They got their own practice to get through. I'm still surprised that they did it like this. They were talking big about a big kicking competition. They started with a big kicking competition. And they just went, okay, it's the first sign. They went, no kicking competition. Let's throw in the towel. Let's just give it to the incumbent. That strikes me as a little bit 49er-y, very much 49er-y. We say we're going to really focus on the kicking, and then when any push comes to shove, we're not really going to focus on the kicking. We're just going to give it back to Moody.
Well, first of all, we have to. I hope that Mike puts this on YouTube.
The video
just to show here where the scoreboard is setting up. Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, the whole rhetoric, the whole theme, one of the big storylines of camp was that, okay, this competition is going to sharpen Jake Moody. It's going to steel him for the first time. He's going to have some competition.
Or he's going to lose it, like one or the other.
Or he'll lose.
Yeah.
And then here we are. They only had 9 practices, and they only kicked in half of those. I think just 4. Yeah, 4 practices. They had a kicking competition, and now it's over. And, oh, by the way, Moody was trailing in that kicking competition. Greg Joseph had made 1 more field goal than he did. And I think that was the case in the summer, too. I mean, in the spring as well. Joseph was a little bit sharper than Moody was. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes you think that, I wonder if there was a competition all along. But Brant Boyer, to his credit, he has not gone with the incumbency at all on special teams. This has been a bad special teams. He's come in and he's cleaned house. It's a new long snapper. It's a new punter, new coverage guys, new coaching staff on special teams. But he did say that, he was fond of Moody coming out in 2023. He and probably all the other special teams coordinators recognized a talent there. So it's not as if I don't think it's solely because Moody was a 3rd round pick by this team. I think Boyer would have had the license to make a change there, but I think he does believe in Moody and thinks that he's going to be good. They just kind of have to see it through. And that's the reason for the change is that they have all sorts of injury issues up and down the roster, and these guys don't practice, and they made a change at quarterback also. For example, they had 4 quarterbacks on the roster. They released Tanner Mordecai, and they kept Carter Bradley, who's the son of assistant head coach Gus Bradley. So 2 positions that don't really get on the field. This team only uses 3 quarterbacks in practice. So that's the sort of the rationale behind some of these moves.
Yeah, all understood. And Moody's a talented guy, but we always see him look great in practice. And he actually did not win this practice mathematical battle. The whole point was to see, let's put pressure on him to see if he's going to do in games, because he's missing in games. Was a 10 of 20 from 40 and out last season. Was just terrible from 40 and out after he had got hurt. Understood. He was making field goals. Was he 6 for 6 in week 1? I think I saw. I completely forgot that.
Yeah, it was. It was the only one scoring in week 1.
Just a blur, but very talented kicker, and you see it every time in practice. But you saw it for Greg Joseph too. And I know Shanahan said kickers always competing, but who was he competing with when he went 10 for 20 from 40 yards and out last year? Nobody, because they kept him. Who was he competing with in practice? I guess nobody, because they call it off and they just give it to him. They could have cut him too, right? But no, because he's always going to get the job. So even if he's shaky, I'll believe it that they can move on from him when I see it, because they could have done it before. And they just can't quit him. That's right. They can't quit him. They're they've moved on from Trey Lance. They moved on from Eric Armstead. They moved on from Deebo Samuel. They cannot move on from Jake Moody. In fact, I wish I'd written that line, and I like that line. For some reason, well, obviously tie close to the fact that they used a third-round pick on him, one of the highest drafted kickers of this millennium. And they just have just decided that's the guy. They don't want to worry about kicking. Turns out they have to worry about kicking all the time with Jake Moody. Maybe he gets over the hump with this, but I've imagined it's going to be very similar. He's going to make a couple, miss, make a couple, look good, miss. Then what do? They have not tested him out. They have not tested him out. And when, they were ready to do it, they said they were going to do it. And then when it came any close to where, we need one more safety or we need one more tackle, I get it. You got to practice, but you got 90 people. So they just seem to accumulate all these injuries. I guess that's not their fault, but they got Andre Dillard, who's still on the team, who doesn't practice ever. And you had to sign an offensive lineman. Like, there's just some, I'll just say it does signify why they're in this place with all the bad special teams, because they just haven't prioritized it in the past. They seem to be doing it now, much more so, Brant Boyer, but they're not doing it again because they did not have a competition. They did. Who again was he competing with when he missed 10 of his 20 kicks from 40 yards and out last season? Nobody. I think that was part of, the Deebo Samuel thing. It was like this, he was mad at him for missing all those kicks in Tampa Bay. It was like, is he never going to be challenged? Is he ever going to have a competition? Thought it was going to be this year, and they just don't do it. The 49ers just don't push the needle in their minds on kicker if anything else comes up, and a bunch of stuff came up this year. I get it. I do think it kind of just belies what they said all offseason, and they didn't do it. And if Jake Moody cannot make clutch kicks when it matters, that's on them because they had the chance to move on from him.
Are you forgetting the big Zane Gonzalez competition back in 2023?
Zane Gonzalez was okay. Was just fine.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and Moody got hurt, was missing, then got hurt. And I was going, you know what? This is a really easy chance. Put him on injury reserve and go with Zane Gonzalez, because I thought Moody was not all the way back. I didn't think he was right as a rookie. He had a fine season, not a great season. He had a fine season, but this missed one in Cleveland, I seem to recall. That was kind of big. It is funny. It's because Shanahan does not care that much about special teams. Again, he's mad at me when I say it, but he doesn't. That even when they put emphasis on special teams, even when they know the kicking thing is important, it in the end is not that important to Kyle Shanahan. He just doesn't want to think about it. Like it would really have to go a long way, I think, for him to make a change on kicker in the regular season. Because why does he want to even have to think about it? Boyer maybe has the right to do it. I don't know. And like, this just wouldn't happen in an Andy Reid team. I just don't think it would. This would not happen on a John Harbaugh team, like Bill Belichick team. Special teams isn't the most important thing in football, but it's important enough, and it does not meet that standard most of the time for Kyle Shanahan. I'm not saying to kill him. I'm not saying it's just, let's understand that this is signifying what this team is. They just don't care that much about the kickers. I think that's like, would you argue with me on that one?
Well, no, but I mean, you do seem to be saying two things. I do think that if Brant Boyer said, I don't like the cut of this kid's jib. I don't think he's got it. I think that Shanahan would listen to him and Moody would be gone. I think Moody's here because Boyer believes in him. Boyer's been saying that since the spring. And like I said, I do think that Boyer has the carte blanche to make changes if he saw fit. I mean, the 49ers wouldn't, I don't think that they just stick with him because he's a third-round pick. They're sticking with him because he's a third-round pick who had so much talent or perceived talent coming out of Michigan in 23 that they think that it's going to click at some point and he's going to be really good. To support what you just said, and Kyle Shanahan is not going to love this, but I had my binoculars at practice today. I went up into the stands and I watched it from the bleachers, but with the binoculars, it was a good perspective. And one of the things I saw was during special teams practice, and this wasn't a field goal session. I think that they were doing punt return or something like that. I saw through my binoculars Kyle Shanahan chatting it up with Richard Sherman.
Oh, okay.
Richard Sherman was on the sidelines. He was
Mhm.
giving bro hugs to everybody, Kittle and those guys, and he was having a long chat with Kyle Shanahan. So Shanahan wasn't exactly wasn't
Locked in.
exactly locked in on the special teams portion at that moment that I happened to be watching. So
Oh, you're
we'll
getting
have
a phone call now, Barrows. You are getting a phone call
yeah.
now.
Corey Rush is going to be mad that I said this. Now they'll probably take my binoculars away.
Yeah.
Is what
Oh,
I fear.
obviously.
Yeah.
Well, that I mean, it's a safety hazard anyway. They're so freaking big. Uh, this is just who they are. I just want again, they've been very, very good. God knows, I've said they've accumulated a ton of talent. They're a really well-run organization. They just haven't won a Super Bowl, but they've been right there for many times. Weren't there last year. I think they're going to have a better season this season. Maybe slightly less talented, but perhaps won't get as many injuries. But the crick in the whole thing, and maybe it's not a huge thing, is that they just don't believe in kicking, and they thought they're just going to fix it forever by drafting Moody, and it hasn't fixed it. In fact, it's gotten worse. And then they're just going to keep betting on them. And maybe they'll make a change, at some point. I'm not saying they won't. So it's going to probably take a lot. And then, you haven't had whoever's going to be the kicker in for this whole time. Maybe it'll be Joseph, maybe somebody else. And, the side note is they do keep accumulating all these injured players. And we know injuries happen. I don't, not more serious than another, perhaps, other than last year was terrible. But, you sign Andre Dillard and he can't get on the field. You have Isaac Garendo is hurt again. Again, not his fault, but they do seem to accumulate. This is a little bit of pattern of their down years, is they kind of get over optimistic about some of these players. Who was Jason Verrett? Remember, they re-signed him after he blew out his knee. It's like, what? He's your number one cornerback. What? I know everybody loves him, but you cannot be counting on him. That is another little thing of theirs, is they fall in love with guys and get over optimistic about injuries. Again, I'm not trying to bury them this season. I've said my fill on the signings, and that wasn't Shanahan and Lynch about kind of the offloading of everybody, but just this is who they are, and it just a reminder to all of us that they can think different things, they can plan for different things, but when it really comes down to it, people are going to be who they are, and the 49ers are very much being who the 49ers are. And then some injuries, like that Kevin Givens injury sounds pretty bad. It's like almost like maybe either something close to a torn pectoral, something like that.
I think so. I mean, we're talking regular season at this point. And he had a pec injury in December of last year that put him on IR to end the season. So I don't know where this stands. I'm going to try to find out a little bit more about that. But he was going to be the starter, I think, in week one. I don't think he's a long-term plan at defensive tackle, but the way the 49ers have it set up under this Chris Kasurik defensive line is that you've got one guy who's sort of the three technique, the Javon Hargrave position. You've got one guy who's closer to a nose tackle. He kind of shaded off of the nose tackle. He's in the A gap. And the A gap guy is Jordan Elliott right now. And the three technique was Kevin Givens. Now, the 49ers would love that three technique to ultimately be Alfred Collins, second round pick. He's been slow to, pick up the defensive footwork, what they want him to do. I think that the 49ers understand this. He didn't do this at Texas. It's going to take a little while, but he's got this combination of size and quickness to make him a handful at that spot. The other spot, you've got CJ West is a possibility there. You've got Evan Anderson is a possibility there. I should say that Kalia Davis is probably a possibility at the three technique as well. But I think this is a blow for them. It's not, like I said, it wasn't going to be a long-term plan. I think that they wanted these young guys to take over at some point. But I think at the beginning of the season, they kind of felt like, okay, Kevin Givens is going to be able to hold down this spot initially, and we'll have one of these young guys take it over from him at some point. Now that has to happen much more quickly. And I think people are positive about CJ West and Evan Anderson and all of these guys, but it's not part of the grand design, I think, for this team.
And as I always say, more guys could get hurt, right? That's a position guys get hurt. So you might be going way down. You already cut down some of the depth with the discards in the offseason. Now you could keep going down. Or it just means instead of like these rookies being 2 of the first 3 or 2 of the first 4, maybe in DT rotation, they maybe 2 of the first 3. Like they might really be getting tons of snaps, getting 40, 45, 50 snaps a game, which is a heavy load. And we'll see if they hold up physically and see if they hold up technique wise. But you're going to get some of those guys are going to get hurt. They just are, and already have. Garendo, shoulder injury that I guess you guys reported is from a kickoff drill, so he's out for a couple weeks. That would be interesting because we know how much the second running back plays in a Kyle Shanahan system. You're going to end up carrying the ball 20 times a couple of games if McCaffrey misses time. And I just can't think you're going to imagine that McCaffrey is going to play 17 games. So who's the back guy? Jordan James, is he back on the field? I know he had been out for a little bit.
Yeah, the number 1 today, because Christian McCaffrey had a rest day, the number 1 tailback was Patrick Taylor Jr. So anyone who's familiar with the 49ers Green Bay Packers game from last year probably just shuddered when they heard that, because Patrick Taylor Jr. did not have a great game. So he was number 1. Number 2 was Corey Kiner, the undrafted rookie. He's actually looked pretty good. I think he's really solid. And yes, Jordan James did come back, although he didn't take part in any of the team stuff. So they're easing him back in. He went through individual drills. I don't know what that means for Thursday's joint practice, whether he'll be full go for that and full go for the game on Saturday, but he would be up there in the rotation. I think Patrick Taylor Jr. probably gets the start on Saturday if McCaffrey is on the bench as expected. But I would expect to see a lot of James, a lot of Corey Kiner, and then the last back right now is Amir Abdullah, who was signed, I guess, late last week. Ex-Raiders running back. He's a little bit longer in the tooth, but I mean, he's somebody that they can rely on at least. So that's one of their thinnest positions right now. And by the way, they didn't have fullback Kyle Juszczyk. Somebody stepped on his Achilles heel in Saturday's practice, and I don't think it was torn or anything like that, but there is a gash on the Achilles, and he was out today, might be out for a couple of days. So he's a question mark for Thursday and Saturday as well. So the running back area was really thin today. A lot of 2 tight end stuff, which isn't necessarily bad because I think, they obviously spent some money on Luke Farrell. So there were a lot of instances where Farrell and Kittle were both in the game. And I think that's something that the 49ers are going to use more and more of this season anyway. So probably good to have those guys practicing. They cut one of the tight ends, Mason Pline, who a lot of practice observers like just because he's got real size to him. I tend to think that Braden Willis is probably in the lead for the number 3 tight end, but I was talking to the tight ends coach on Sunday, and he said, yeah, right now it's a toss-up between Willis, Ross Dwelly, and Jake Tondres, and they all kind of have versatility. They all play special teams. That actually might be a position that Brant Boyer ends up really kind of picking, because that guy, that 3rd tight end, has to play a lot of special teams. So it might be that the best special teamer of that group, and Tondres and Dwelly probably they certainly have a lot more experience than Willis does, might have a little bit of an edge there.
Diamonor back, I guess, briefly. So that's good news for the 49ers. You don't want that one to be carrying over. Full speed or close to full speed? Where is he physically?
Yeah, he was out doing at least some teamwork. So he seems, if he's not full speed, he's close to full speed. He was playing opposite Dallas Flowers at outside cornerback, and he's looked good. They've been missing Darrell Luter in recent practices. He was out for a personal reason. He was back today. So I expect Dallas Flowers, I expect Luter, I expect Trey Brown to get a lot of reps on Thursday and Saturday. So they're looking for this fourth cornerback. They're looking for the third outside cornerback on this team. I think that Upton Stout, he's been one of the better storylines or more positive storylines for the 49ers. He's pretty much got the nickel job locked up, I think, if he stays healthy. So he's got the nickel role, Renardo Green on one outside spot, Diamador Lenore on the other. The question is, okay, if you're missing Lenore and or Green, who comes in? And I think that coming out of the spring, Trey Brown was in the lead there, but I think he's lost a little bit of ground. He's not the fastest guy on the planet. He's not the longest guy on the planet. Both Flowers and Darrell Luter have that length that I think the 49ers like to have, at least in the lineup somewhere. So I think that it'll be interesting. I think the 49ers hope that it doesn't become a crucial one, but I mean, we've already seen both of the number one cornerbacks go down already this summer. So that's absolutely a possibility for some point during the regular season.
I thought Lenore might be, they might keep him inside. I mean, start him on the outside, go 3 routes, go inside just because he wants to do it. But I think a Stout is really good. You might as well just play your best 3, and he is going to play nickel. So that's an upgrade, right? That's them getting better. And Shanahan really wants to keep Lenore at one position. He said that when I asked him about it. Like, he doesn't want him to play outside, and then you go move inside when it's nickel. I think Lenore likes it, but I think Shanahan and the defensive coaches would really like to keep it in one spot. So maybe they can go with those 3 and they stay healthy. If they do, that is an upgrade over last season. I definitely believe that. You want to go quickly over Firster, just blowing through all the 49ers plus minus questions on the offensive line yesterday? My God, I just was reading your thing on. I don't have any more questions about what they're going to do. So Zakel is not really battling with Barch at left guard. It's going to be Barch at left guard. The swing tackle sounds like Pleasance at this moment, or at least he's going to be like in that mix for the swing tackle, I guess, with Burford. That's what it sounded like. I don't know that Dillard, is he in the plan? I mean, like, I think you had to ask Firster about him for him to even bring him up, which is always an interesting tell. What else do you glean from Firster? What things did he kind of clarify there?
Well, we have seen Dillard working out on a side field, and I asked about, okay, when do you expect him back? The first response was, I don't know. He's going to work out today. We'll have a better indication, but it's going to be soon. So we'll see. I mean, I still think that there's enough time between now and the regular season, and Dillard is enough of a veteran that he could be the swing tackle, somebody who can play left or right. Because right now they don't have a swing tackle on the active roster or in the practices, because Burford is playing solely left tackle, and Austin Pleasance is playing solely right tackle. Mm-hmm. And so until one of those guys, shifts over to the other side, I'm going to go with Dillard as my guess, because you would have to have 4 roster spots for tackles. You'd have to trust that nobody is going to snipe one of them. What if they, all this positive press about Austin Pleasance this summer, you try to get him on practice squad and somebody scoops him up on waivers in late August. This happened to the team, 2 years running now, especially at offensive line. They lost Jarrett Kingston last year, one of their draft picks, who looked good. So, I mean, I still think that that's a big question mark going forward. I don't think that Austin Pleasance, I shouldn't say that. I haven't seen him at left tackle, so I don't know if he's got the foot speed for it. I think he's making do at right tackle. He's been getting a lot of reps there. I think he's getting better as time goes on, and maybe he makes a move at some point and they just trust him with that job. But that would be a pretty big ask of him to be the backup left tackle to Trent Williams if and when Trent Williams gets hurt during the season. Again, he has not played a full season since 2013. Nope. So that was a long time ago. It was more than a decade ago. And then I thought one of the interesting things, and this is very inside baseball, This is only for our elite listeners. So if you're not an elite listener, please, you can tune out right now. But Drew Moss, an undrafted offensive lineman out of Colorado State, mostly played tackle at Colorado State. He's been playing guard for the 49ers. But Berster says he's got his eyes on him as a center. And, the 49ers have had a lot of kind of center candidates over the years, but I think Moss stands out a little bit because he's powerfully built. He's a powerful guy. He's very strong. He might be able to make it at guard, but Berster thinks that center is probably his position of the future, and that requires reps, and it's a lot of mental stuff, but physically he might be the strongest, stoutest center candidate that they've had in a while. Stronger than Brendel, stronger than Matt Hennessy, physically stronger than Drake Nugent, who's in the number 3 role right now. So he's somebody that this year is probably a far cry unless there's a rash of injuries. But next year, you might look for him to start making a move at that spot. And that's been a spot that 49ers fans have been up in arms about all year long. And then the other interesting thing is that really it's between Matt Hennessy and Nick Zakelj for that kind of emergency interior spot on game days. And the question is whether Zakelj is good enough at center in case there's an injury to Brendel that he could come in and really handle that for a while, because they know that Hennessy can play center. They know that Hennessy is not a great guard. That's why he didn't work out in Atlanta. The question that needs to be solved is, can Zakelj really, is he comparable to Hennessy? Can he come close to Hennessy at center? And that's what they're going to have to find out the rest of this month.
And the thing that always gets fans so happy that we've almost moved past now, we've kind of talked about it for a while, is Jake Brendel is a made man with the 49ers. There are no question marks.
Anybody named Jake on this team, Tim, just automatically gets a
you got me with that one.
A roster spot. You got Jake Moody, you got Jake Brendel, you got Jacob Cowing. He's probably still going to make a roster spot even though he hasn't practiced.
Jake Lynch, the new defensive quality
That's
control.
True. There you go.
All the Jakes are it used to be the Trents. We knew a Trent there who was making the call. So a lot of Trents were doing well, particularly a backup quarterback who liked to talk to the media. But we like the Trent who's there now. I will say that. But Jake Brendel is like as made a man almost as can be on that offensive line. And so fans thinking about that, talk about it. I haven't heard less about it, but I think you and I have done yeoman's work to knock them down on that. They can still complain about him. They can still not love him, but he ain't getting replaced, fellas. Is not happening. He's their guy.
He's in his 30s, however. So, I mean, the specter of an injury is always there. Yeah. So you have to have somebody behind him. But I agree with you. I thought at one point that there might be competition between Hennessy and Brendel for the top spot. No, there hasn't been any competition. I think it's a clear demarcation between him and Hennessy, and I think it's a clear demarcation between Ben Barch and Nick Zakelj at that left guard spot. So probably the opening day roster from left to right is Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz.
Yep. All right, that was a deep dive on offensive line. That's the stuff that people count on us for, Matt Barrows. So I'm glad we did it. Glad we did this emergency episode. I was going to wait till Thursday. We can't wait till Thursday because plus we're going to have all the joint practice stuff to do. So we would not even really get into it. They won't do kicking in the joint practices. I think that's part of it too. Is you weren't going to do kicking in this one or the Raiders joint practice in a couple of weeks. So that's one important thing that you don't need a kicker for. Anyway, we'll talk about this throughout the season. We'll talk about Jake Moody throughout the season, I'm sure. But the kicking competition of training camp 2025 is done. Over. It is not even going to go any further past August 4th. All right, guys, that is it, everybody. That's the show for today.